I always hated waking up before sunrise. My body protested against the 4:30 a.m. alarm clock. But at the Quantico Training Academy in Virginia, your personal desire didn't matter, especially not to Instructor Davy, that small, quiet woman who seemed to watch us with hawk-like eyes during every second of our training. That day, as I dragged myself to the shooting range, my body ached from the previous day's training. 6 weeks at the academy, and I still hadn't adjusted. Maybe it was my inflated ego that brought me here, a criminology graduate with honors, a college athlete, and the daughter of a respected police chief in Chicago. I thought the FBI Academy would be challenging, but not this daily torture. Taylor, your vest is misaligned. Adjust it now. Davy's voice was calm, but authoritative. She never yelled like the other instructors. I rolled my eyes as I adjusted my vest. Who did she think she was? A petite woman who couldn't have weighed more than 50 kilos. Impeccably dressed in her navy blue uniform, her brown hair always pulled back in a perfect bun. Unlike the other instructors who boasted of their exploits in the field, Davies never talked about her past. Some recruits speculated that she had never seen real action, that she was just a bureaucrat promoted by some diversity program. "Yes, ma'am," I replied with a forced smile. Beside me, Martinez stifled a laugh. There were 26 of us recruits in this class, all fiercely competing, all determined to prove our worth. But Davies seemed fixated on correcting me. "Do you think she's ever actually shot anyone?" I whispered to Martinez as Davies walked away to inspect another recruit. "I bet she'd faint if she saw real blood." "I heard she's never been on the field," Martinez replied quietly. "He's probably spent his entire career analyzing reports in some windowless room." Our conversation was interrupted when the lead instructor, Special Agent Hammond, arrived on the field. Hammond was the opposite of Davies, tall, muscular, with a booming voice, and constantly sharing stories of his operations in the Middle East and South America. "Good morning, recruits," Hammond shouted. "Today we're going to test your accuracy under pressure. Agent Davies will be supervising the exercise." I couldn't suppress an audible sigh. Great. Lady Perfection is evaluating us again. The exercise was seemingly simple. Navigate an obstacle course, and, at the end, identify and shoot at hostile targets while sparing civilians. All this with a timer running. "You have 90 seconds, Davies said calmly as I positioned myself on the starting line. "Remember to check your corner." "Yes, ma'am," I replied mechanically, gripping my training Glock. I was determined to get the highest score, to show her that I belonged here. At the signal, I sprinted down the track. I jumped barriers, crawled under wires, climbed walls. My lungs burned, but the adrenaline propelled me forward. When I reached the firing zone, my heart was racing. Targets began to appear, some with weapons hostile, others holding everyday objects, civilians. I emptied my magazine quickly, confident in my aim. When the last shot rang out, I let out a sigh of relief. "Time!" Hammond shouted. Davies walked slowly to the targets, checking each one. His face revealed nothing. "Taylor, you hit 3 civilians and missed 2 hostile. That would result in 5 deaths in a real situation," she said, her voice unchanged. I felt my face burn. "With all due respect, ma'am, that target was barely visible behind the obstacle. In a real situation, Davies interrupted me. "You would be dead, as would the civilians you were supposed to protect." Some of the other recruits looked away, while others seemed pleased with my failure. Martinez gave me a sympathetic glance. Perhaps if we had instructors with real-world combat experience, we would be better prepared. The words slipped from my mouth before I could stop them. A deathly silence fell over the firing range. Hammond looked like he was about to explode, his face turning as red as a tomato. But before he could speak, Davies raised his hand slightly, signaling that he would handle it. "Recruit Taylor, meet me at firing range 7 after dinner. We have additional training to do," she said simply. No yelling, no extravagant punishment. It irritated me even more. Throughout the rest of the day, my words spread among the recruits like wildfire. Some congratulated me for putting the Ice Princess in her place. Others warned me that I was digging my own grave. Hammond completely ignored me, which was worse than any reprimand. After dinner, I reluctantly walked to firing range 7, the furthest and most isolated of the training ranges. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the academy grounds. Davies was already there, preparing something I couldn't immediately make out. Punctual. "That's good," she commented without looking at me. "Yes, ma'am," I replied automatically, trying to hide my resentment. "You think I don't have field experience, Private Taylor?" Davies asked casually while checking his weapon. "Not a training Glock," I noted, "but a real Sig Sauer P226. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to back down, apologize, save my career, but my stupid pride wouldn't allow it. "With all due respect, ma'am, it's hard to imagine. You never talk about your experiences like the other instructors do?" Davies nodded slowly. "Interesting observation." She finished checking her weapon and holstered it. "Put on your protective gear. We're going to do a different exercise." I put on my ear protectors and safety glasses, confused about what was to come. "This exercise is simple," she explained. "I'm going to activate those moving targets. They will appear randomly. Some will be hostile, some will be civilian. You have to identify and neutralize them correctly. It's like the same exercises earlier, only now in increasing darkness." "Understood, ma'am. But," Davies continued, "this time, you won't be alone." She drew her weapon in a movement so fluid I barely registered it. "I'll be in the field with you, back to back." I swallowed hard. This wasn't standard. None of this was standard. The rules are simple. Protect civilians, neutralize threats, keep me alive, and I'll do the same for you. Before I could fully process it, she activated the system. The field suddenly came alive, targets appearing from all sides, some holding weapons, others harmless objects. The increasing darkness made identification even more difficult. Instinctively, I pressed my back against hers, forming a defensive unit. She was small, but surprisingly sturdy. "Hostile. 10 o'clock. I yelled, firing at a target that emerged holding what appeared to be a rifle. "Confirmed," Davies replied calmly as he fired at a target I hadn't even seen appear on our right. The next few minutes were a blur of movement, rapid communication, and precise shots. To my surprise, we worked well together, as if we had trained this way for years. Her accuracy was impressive, each shot finding its intended target exactly, even in the growing darkness. "Recharging," I announced when my charger ran out of power. "Covering," Davies replied, turning slightly to protect my sector while I reloaded. That's when I realized his movements weren't those of someone who had just studied tactics in books. They were the instinctive movements of someone who had done this in real situations, where failure meant death. When the last target fell and the system shut down, we were breathless, adrenaline pumping through our veins. 17 hostile targets neutralized, 0 civilians injured. Time, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, Davies announced, checking the control panel. "Not bad for someone trained by an instructor with no field experience," she added, a slight hint of amusement. In her usually neutral voice, I lowered my weapon, embarrassed. I apologize for what I said earlier, ma'am." Davies nodded, but didn't accept my apology directly. Instead, she walked over to a small table she had prepared and turned on a flashlight, since it was now almost completely dark. "Sit down, Taylor." She indicated a folding chair. I obeyed, watching as she picked up a folder I hadn't noticed before. It looked old, with the FBI stamp, but also other markings I didn't immediately recognize. "You might wonder why I don't share field stories like Hammond and the other instructors," she began, opening the folder. "It's not because I don't have stories to tell. It's because most of them are still classified." She pushed the folder toward me. The first few pages contained photos. Davies, much younger, wearing military uniform. But not just any uniform, it was the distinctive Delta Force uniform. "Before the FBI, I served in special operations," she explained as I flipped through the pages, each revealing a different facet of her career that left me increasingly astonished. 8 years, 4 deployments. After that, I was recruited into a special joint operations unit between the FBI and the CIA. I stopped at a photo showing Davies receiving a medal from a man I recognized as the former director of the FBI. The name of the operation was redacted, but the document mentioned extraordinary bravery under extreme enemy fire. "Why don't you tell these stories?" "The tune. Other recruits would respect you more?" I asked, genuinely curious. Davies smiled slightly, the first time he'd seen her do that. Respect based on war stories is superficial. I want my recruits to respect me for what I teach, not for what I did. She flipped through several pages until she reached a partially redacted mission report. This was my last field mission before becoming an instructor, a rescue operation in Syria. We were a team of 6, only 2 of us returned. The photo showed what remained of a bombed building. Another document listed names, all redacted except for 2, Davies, K, and Ramirez. And it was after this mission that I earned my call sign. Indicative? I asked. Iron Widow, she replied simply. The name hit me like a ton of bricks. Everyone in the law enforcement community knew that name, a legend, an almost mythological operative responsible for some of the most impossible rescue operations of the last decade. Someone who had gone into war zones where no one else dared to go and come out with hostages that everyone considered lost. You are the Iron Widow, I whispered, finally understand. Was, she corrected. Now, I'm Special Agent Davies, your instructor. She closed the folder. And tomorrow, when we return to the firing range with the other recruits, I'll still just be Agent Davies to you as well. I nodded slowly, understanding the implicit message. Tonight was an exception, a particular lesson she had chosen to teach. Me. Why are you showing me this? I finally asked. You could have simply left me in the dark or kicked me off the show for my comment. Davies studied me for a moment, his eyes assessing something about me that even I didn't fully understand. Because I saw something in you from day one, Taylor. The same fire, the same determination that I had, but also the same overconfidence that almost killed me several times. She pointed to my past performance. You have potential, but you think you already know everything? That's dangerous. Not just for you, but for everyone around you. In our line of work, arrogance kills as surely as a bullet. The words sank deep. For the first time since I entered the academy, I felt true humility. She wasn't nearly as good as I thought. How can I improve? I asked, my voice softer than I intended. Davies smiled again, more broadly this time. Starting tomorrow at 5 a.m. before regular training. Meet me right here. Yes, ma'am, I replied, this time with genuine respect. As I stood up to leave, Davies added something that would completely change my perspective. By the way, Taylor, I never wanted to be a legend. I just wanted to bring my team home alive. Remember that when you dream of glory on the field? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything I'd learned about the woman I'd mocked and belittled for weeks. The Iron Widow, not just an elite agent, but a living legend teaching at the academy, and I'd been arrogant enough to question her expertise. The next day, I arrived at the shooting range at 4:45 a.m. Davies was already there, as I expected, 15 minutes early. Even better, she remarked, handing me a mug of coffee. Thank you, ma'am, I replied, sipping the hot liquid. Today we're starting with the basics. Forget everything you think you know about shooting posture. In the following weeks, my routine changed drastically. Waking up at 4:30 a.m., training with Davies for an hour before official training, then staying for additional sessions in the evening. It was exhausting, but also incredibly rewarding. Davies was a completely different instructor in our private sessions, still rigorous, but more open. Sometimes she would share little stories from her missions, always with an embedded lesson that I needed to decipher. One morning, while we were practicing disarmament techniques, she surprised me with a question. Why do you want to be an FBI agent, Taylor? I paused, considering the question. My automatic response would have been something about following in my father's footsteps or making a difference. But suddenly, those answers seemed rehearsed and empty. Honestly, I don't know anymore, I admitted. Before, it was about proving my worth, maybe seeking some kind of recognition. Now, I'm not sure. Davies nodded, seemingly pleased with my confusion. Good. When you have a real answer, let me know. And we continued training. 3 months passed. My performance on official evaluations improved dramatically, but I kept my distance from the other recruits who continued to see Davies as the ice princess. I never mentioned what I knew about her, honoring our tacit agreement. Then came the day of the final exercise, a hostage situation simulation in an abandoned building. Our class, now reduced to 20 recruits after some dropouts, was divided into 4 teams. I led one of them, responsible for the southern perimeter. The scenario was complex. Domestic terrorists had taken over the building with multiple hostages. Intelligence indicated bombs on several floors. Our mission was to enter, neutralize the threats, and rescue the hostages. In the final briefing, Hammond gave us the last instructions, while Davies watched silently. When he finished, she added just one thing. Remember, you are a team. No one is dispensable. No one gets left behind. Our plan seemed solid. 2 teams would enter through the ground floor, 1 through the roof, and my team would ensure that no one escaped through the back. Simple, straightforward, efficient. But as I've learned in recent months, no operation remains simple once the shooting starts. Everything fell apart the moment we entered the building. A simulated explosion knocked the team off the roof, cutting off communication. One of the ground floor teams encountered far greater resistance than expected. Over the radio, I could hear the chaos. The exercise was spiraling out of control, with hostages being executed every minute that passed. South team, hold position, Hammond ordered over the radio. I looked at my 3 teammates. We could hear the chaos inside the building. Holding our position meant watching failure. Sir, requesting permission to enter through the basement. We can flank the enemy position and relieve the pressure on East team, I suggested. No, Taylor, hold your position. That's an order. At that moment, I remembered something Davies had told me weeks before. Sometimes, protocol keeps you alive. Other times, it keeps you useless. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Team South advancing to alternate entrance, I reported, ignoring the direct order. Martinez, Rodriguez, you come with me. Chun, maintain our original position and continue reporting as if we were all there. Chun seemed nervous. Taylor, that's insubordination. It's an initiative, I corrected. And if I'm wrong, I'll take full responsibility. We moved quickly toward the basement entrance. We had identified during reconnaissance. The explosions and gunfire continued above us as we advanced silently. The basement was dark and labyrinthine, exactly as the blueprints showed. We proceeded in tight formation, using hand signals for communication. When we reached the stairs, I could hear voices above, the terrorists discussing their next move, unaware that we were below them. 3 targets, at least 2 hostages, I whispered. Martinez, smoke bomb. Rodriguez, you take the one. On the left, I'll take the other 2. 2 against 1? Are you sure? Martinez asked. Affirmative, I replied, recalling every lesson Davies had taught me about combat in confined spaces. The operation was quick and precise. Smoke rose up the stairs, causing confusion. We entered in sequence, neutralizing the terrorists before they could react adequately. The hostages were protected, with no casualty. Perimeter secured, I reported over the radio. 3 hostile elements neutralized. 2 hostages secured. Moving to support Team E. The silence on the radio lasted only a second before Hammond's voice thundered, Taylor, you disobeyed direct orders. Yes, sir, I replied calmly, signaling for my team to continue advancing. We'll discuss this in the debriefing. Right now, we have hostages to rescue. The next 20 minutes were intense. Our intervention created the opening that the East team needed. Working together, we cleared the building floor by floor, rescuing each hostage and neutralizing each threat. When the exercise ended, we were exhausted, sweaty, and covered in marker ink, the equivalent of minor injuries. But all the hostages were alive, all the bombs disarmed, and most of the terrorists neutralized. In the outer courtyard, while the teams Hammond seemed torn between anger at my insubordination and satisfaction with the result. Davy, as always, revealed nothing. During the debriefing, I prepared myself for the worst. Insubordination during training was sufficient grounds for expulsion. Hammond got straight to the point. Private Taylor, you disobeyed a direct order, endangering your team and compromising the southern perimeter. Yes, sir, I admitted. However, he continued, his initiative probably saved the exercise. The basement approach wasn't in the original script. It was an unexpected variable that our evaluators had to improvise. I didn't know if that was good or bad. Hammond looked at Davies, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Initiative is valued at the FBI, Taylor, Hammond continued. But so is discipline. You'll have to find the balance between the two. Yes, sir. Full report on my desk tomorrow. And you will oversee the cleaning of the training field for a week. Understood, sir. When the debriefing ended and the other recruits left, Davies remained. Hammond closed the door, leaving us alone. "Disobeying orders is a dangerous habit, Taylor," she remarked, but there was no reprimand in her voice. "It was the right decision," I replied confidently. "This time," she agreed, "and you were prepared to face the consequences if you were wrong. That's important." She opened a folder. "My evaluation file. You're graduating in 2 weeks. Have you thought about where you want to be assigned?" The question caught me off guard. In recent months, I had been so focused on surviving training that I had barely thought about what would come next. "Hostage rescue unit, eventually," I replied honestly. "But I know I need field experience first." Davies made a note in the file. "The Chicago office is requesting new aid. It would be close to your family." "I prefer Washington," I replied without hesitation, "or anywhere with more active operations." She smiled slightly. "Still looking for action, Taylor?" "No, ma'am. I'm looking to make a difference where it's most needed." Davies closed the file, looking satisfied. "You've changed in the last few months." "I had a good instructor," I replied. She nodded and stood to leave, but stopped at the door. "Oh, and Taylor? That question I asked a few weeks ago about why you want to be an FBI agent. Did you find your answer?" I thought for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened. "Yes, ma'am. It's not about me. It never was. It's about the people who can't protect themselves. It's about bringing everyone home." Davies smiled, a genuine smile this time. "Congratulations, Agent Taylor. You finally got it." 2 weeks later, at the graduation ceremony, I stood beside my colleague, now fellow agents, as we received our badges. My parents were in the audience, my father with tears in his eyes. After the ceremony, while the new agents celebrated with their families, I noticed Davies chatting with Hammond in a corner. She rarely attended social events, and I was surprised to see her there. As I approached to thank him for everything, Hammond smiled in a way I had never seen before. "Agent Taylor, I have news for you. Your first assignment." He handed me an official envelope. Inside, a transfer document for the Quantum Crisis Response Unit, an elite division that typically required years of field experience. There must be some mistake," I stammered, looking at Davies. "No mistake," she replied. "You were personally selected." "By whom?" "As far as I'm concerned." A new voice joined the conversation. I turned to find a tall man in an impeccable suit, whom I immediately recognized as Assistant Director Clark. "Agent Davies rarely makes personal recommendations, Agent Taylor. When she does, we pay attention." I looked at Davies, stunned. "But I don't even have field experience." "You will have it," she replied simply. "The unit needs fresh blood, different perspectives." Assistant Director Clark shook my hand. "Congratulations, Agent. Report in on Monday at 0800. When he walked away, I was left alone with Davies. "Why me?" I finally asked. She considered the question for a moment before answering. "Because you learned the most important lesson I try to teach, and one that many never learn. What it is. This job isn't about being a hero. It's about doing what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, no matter the personal cost." She paused. "And because you remind me of myself when I was younger, except you're smarter than I was, you learn faster." I had never seen this vulnerable side of her. "Thank you," was all I could manage to say. "Don't thank me yet," she replied, returning to her professional tone. "I'll be leading the unit for the next 6 months before transferring to international operations. Those will be the hardest 6 months of your life." She smiled. "I wouldn't expect less, ma'am." She nodded and started to walk away, but then stopped and turned around. "And Taylor? When we're on the field, you can call me Widow." As I watched the legendary Agent Davies, the Iron Widow, disappear into the crowd, I reflected on my journey. She had arrived at the academy full of arrogance and presumption, mocking a woman whose courage and skills she could barely comprehend. Now he was about to work alongside her, not as a troublesome recruit, but as an agent who had earned, if not her complete respect, at least her trust. The road ahead would be difficult, of that I had no doubt. But for the first time since deciding to pursue this career, I felt I truly belonged in this world. Not for the wrong reasons, fame, recognition, or to prove, something, but for the right reasons, to protect the innocent and, as Davies always emphasized, to bring everyone home. As I put away my new badge, I made a silent promise to myself. One day, when recruits whispered legends in the academy hallway, perhaps my name would be mentioned alongside her, not as the recruit who mocked the quiet instructor, but as the agent who learned from the Iron Widow and carried her legacy forward. And if that day never came, if I never became a legend, I would be perfectly fine with that, because now I understood what Davies always knew. The best agents aren't the ones who become legends. They're the ones who do the job day after day, saving lives that will never know their name. That was the true legacy of the Iron Widow, and now it was my mission as well.